MPSG's on-farm network began investigating foliar fungicide applications in dry beans in 2016, so today we'll review the last 7 years of data. The goal of these on-farm trials is to examine the agronomic and economic impacts of fungicide applications in beans. Will a fungicide application reduce white mold pressure? Will it protect yield and provide a return on investment? And one of the reasons this trial type is so important is because we're applying fungicides as a preventative tool to manage white mold. There are other diseases controlled and on the fungicide label, but white mold can really be quite devastating, and it's our main disease target. Once we're starting to see symptoms of infection, it's already too late. So our fungicide applications are really targeting this early pin bean stage to protect flower blooms and foliage. And we want to know, what is our likelihood of response to this preventative application, and how can we fine-tune when we're most likely to see a response to fungicide? So since 2016, there have been 16 fungicide trials in dry beans comparing a single application at early pin bean versus none. And then in 2021, we also had one trial comparing a single app versus 2 apps. The fungicide product choice has been up to the farmer, and they're applied at early pin bean following those label recommendations. Some background agronomic information on these trials so far. Of the 16 trials comparing one app to none, there have been 6 trials in navy beans and 9 in pintos. I know that adds up to 15. There is a trial where we don't have variety information available. But those navy plant stands were between 70 to 90,000 plants per acre established, and pintos range anywhere from 50 to 81,000 plants per acre. All of these trials so far have been grown on 30-inch rows. And then for products, most have tested Lance, but there's also been trials where we've used Categra or Acapella. Depending on the year, that R2 pin bean stage occurred anytime between July 13th and 27th. And the one trial comparing one app to 2 was in black beans. That plant stand was 91,000 plants per acre, and it was on 10-inch rows. So in every fungicide trial, we do take disease ratings. In dry beans, we're assessing foliar and stem anthracnose severity and white mold on a 0 to 5 scale. And we're also noting if bacterial blight is present in the field. And we're only noting if bacterial blight is there because it's not controlled by a fungicide. It's not really what we're trying to answer the question of, is that disease pressure reduced? And July rainfall can play a big role in white mold development each year. And one question is, how can we predict when this preventative application is likely to pay? So this is the percent normal July rainfall at each of those on-farm trials. And then the orange line is just an easy way to show us where 100% of normal is. So we've had 4 trials receive more than 100% normal rainfall. Otherwise, these trials have been pretty dry in July. So at this one field in 2017, white mold incidence was actually 4% lower with a fungicide application. And at the 3 other wetter trials, white mold was actually not present in those fields. But here is the white mold data for the single versus none trials. So white mold was present in half of these trials, most of the time infecting less than 10% of plants in the field. So there were 3 trials where it was closer to 20% of plants infected in the field. And where white mold was present, the trend was that the percent of plants infected was lower in strips that did receive that fungicide application. But what did that mean for yield? So there was one significant yield response in 2022, where a single application of fungicide improved navy bean yield by 175 pounds per acre. However, there wasn't actually any white mold or anthracnose disease pressure recorded at that trial field, which is interesting. There was also a trial in 2017 that was teetering on the edge of being significant. So at that trial, white mold was 4% lower with a single application of fungicide, improving yield by just over 200 pounds per acre. But it wasn't quite significant. 0.5 is kind of the cutoff point, but it's worth talking about because it's so close. Was that yield increase enough to pay for the fungicide cost? If we're assuming a product cost of about $18.50 an acre and a bean sell price of anywhere from 30 to 50 cents per pound, fungicide did pay for itself in 2022 at that significant trial, providing a return on investment of $34 to $69 per acre, depending on your sell price. So in summary, a single application of fungicide has improved dry bean yield 6% of the time. So far, trial fields have been dry or generally have not had white mold present in those trial years. With more moisture in 2022 and hopefully a return to normal moisture in 2023, we will continue these trials to capture more environments and conditions across Manitoba. Because the goal is, how can we decide if a fungicide application is going to be warranted in dry beans? There are a few things we can consider ahead of an application, and as we add more environments and fields to this data set, we'll be fine-tuning these recommendations too. So assessing the risk of disease development does come down to if we have that environment and if the disease is likely to be present. So warm, humid conditions around flowering, how dense is that plant canopy and row width, plant populations, and nitrogen fertility can all play a role in how dense that canopy is. Those are all influencing that environment for that disease to develop. And if that disease is likely to be present in the field, white mold has a really wide host range. So think of your last broadleaf crop in that field. What was white mold pressure like then? Is risk greater? Is there more disease carryover? And are there other broadleaf hosts nearby that might be blowing spores into your field too? So those are some of the things to consider, and they are worked into our fungicide decision worksheet and tool. Those tools are available both on our website at manitobapulse.ca and also incorporated into the MPSG bean app. So you just enter in your weather data, both before flowering and during flowering, and your management scores or characteristics like crop rotation, fertility, etc. Those agronomic characteristics that can impact it. And it's going to give you a risk score assessing your risk in that field specifically to help make that fungicide decision on your farm and in your fields. To reduce your risk, you can use a crop rotation that takes a longer break between extremely susceptible crops like canola and beans. Wider rows, lower plant populations, and later seeding dates do slow canopy closure and they improve aeration between plants, but this generally is also limiting your yield potential because you're not capturing as much sunlight with the crop. So the recommendation is still to use adequate nitrogen fertilizer rates, target those recommended plant populations and seeding dates to maximize your yield potential. Foliar fungicides are a tool we can use to manage this disease, and we will fine-tune the use of that as well and get better at predicting it too. There is some great research on those different management tools as well available from Michael Wunsch's program at NDSU in Carrington. So they've investigated dry bean row spacing, seeding rates, app timing, spray droplet size, and they've also compared efficacy of different products against white mold. So I do recommend checking out their results, and you can do that by searching NDSU Carrington Plant Pathology. And if you're interested in learning more about these specific trial results, the on-farm trial results, every trial is available on the On-Farm Network database, and that's available at manitobapulse.ca, or you can follow this QR code here. If you're interested in participating in a trial, you can contact Ian. He's our On-Farm Network technical specialist. His contact information is listed here. So thanks for your time today. I've been Laura, MPSG's Western agronomist. To stay up to date on research results like these, do feel free to follow us on social media. Thanks.